Tulsi Gabbard's joining us. Will, this is such a really busy time, and we have moments like this where the Supreme Court could be altered. You have Harris coming in with some strong polls, and now potentially a vice presidential candidate that could help that as well. It's just a busy time.
That's right. And Tulsi, what we're seeing from the media currently is definitely a honeymoon period that they're giving the vice president. You can tell a lot on the liberal media is very relieved that it is not Joe Biden running anymore. But we're also seeing them start to cover for the failures as Vice President Harris was given that task of trying to mitigate the issues at the southern border, where many of the outlets called her the border czar early on, as many of us did, because that was what seemed to be the role that was given to her, are now even clawing that back and be like, no, she was never the border czar. What's your take on the way the media is covering for Vice President Harris now as she is the presumptive nominee?
It's not a surprise to see how they're reacting. As you pointed out, once they got the signal that Biden was not going to be the preferred choice of the Washington elite, they all started, piling up against him. And it was almost an overnight switch in their narrative of going from defending him and trying to somehow convey that he was quite capable of being our president, commander in chief, to almost overnight, especially after that debate with Donald Trump, saying, well, no, he is incapable. They were exposed. And I think that we're seeing the very same thing happen with Kamala Harris, is they have a very clear objective, and it is the Democrat elite, the administrative state, the people who have been making decisions behind the scenes for the entire Biden-Harris administration, continuing to work with their allies and partners in the propaganda media and big tech to tell the story that they want us as voters to believe. They don't care if it's rooted in facts or truth or anything at all. So, we have to be very clear-eyed. And this is something that I hope that the Trump administration focuses on is simply comparing the facts of the record of the Biden-Harris administration versus President Trump's record in his 4 years in office. There is such a huge contrast there of failures in the Biden-Harris administration and successes in the Trump administration around issues that voters really, truly care about. Bread and butter issues like the economy, border security, states, communities, domestic policy, foreign policy, protecting our children. The list goes on. And I believe that as long as facts continue to rise to the forefront in spite of this cover-up job that the mainstream propaganda media are doing now, and they're going to continue. This is not going to change. Kamala Harris is their horse, and they're going to do all they can to get her across that finish line. So it's going to require a whole lot of people reminding voters of the truth, of the negative consequences we've been experiencing in our country ever since the Biden-Harris administration took office.
Tulsi, that's one of the things that we've been talking about here internally, and even reading people's comments. They're getting a little lost. Like when we talk about the fact that polls are shifting, and we've seen some polling for Harris rise significantly, or at least even out. There's commentary going, how would you even give this any credit? Why are you talking about this? Or even, like you said, Mike, like, hey, let's maybe focus on one of the interesting parts about this, which is she has a pretty significant record in terms of she was part of this administration the last 4 years, all of her time in California. There's a lot you can actually talk about if we start focusing on that, like you said, the important issues that actually matter that shouldn't really then impact the polls in some ways, because it's a clear who you would support or who you wouldn't support. But if you get lost in these personal attacks, if you get lost in these, like I said, almost the meme culture of it, it starts to become a concern because you have a lot of people who will be turned off by that. Either they're not going to vote or they don't understand the real ramifications here of what could be a Harris presidency.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, ultimately, when you really look at it, people are, many people, most people, I would say, are concerned about, providing for their families. They're concerned about, how tough it is to be able to afford the things that you need to, both support yourself and those that you love and care about. They're concerned about the increasing pressures from millions of illegal immigrants crossing our borders. They're concerned about, the prospect and the increased likelihood of nuclear war. These are all very real things that transcend, Democrats versus Republicans. And when they see politicians who resort to kind of the, who are distracted away from these issues,
right,
This is when they tune it out and they're like, okay, well, you obviously don't care about us and what I care about, so I don't know why I should listen to you anymore.
Tulsi, one other thing that we saw yesterday was President Biden put out what he proposes are reforms to a co-equal branch of government, the Supreme Court. It's concerning to us as we've seen those on the left attack the Supreme Court over and over again. But now that during this time, while Kamala Harris is getting such praise and all these laurels from the media, that Biden is taking it upon himself to attack a co-equal branch of government and try to change the way they operate. What are your thoughts on this as we head into this election season, that the Democrats are concerned and fixated on adjusting a constitutionally co-equal branch of government?
This really, and you've had so many great speakers, and you guys have been raising some very focused and valid concerns about what President Biden and Kamala Harris and the Democrats are pushing. Take it as a layer deeper, and this is one of the main reasons why I left the Democratic Party. I talk about this in my book, For Love of Country. Is this is what happens when you have a party that doesn't care about the Constitution, and they really believe that they are the authority in this country that is more powerful and more important than the Constitution, our foundational principles in our country. So, of course, they believe that they should be able to dictate the rules of the Supreme Court, that they should be able to dictate and have power over what the Constitution mandates is a co-equal branch of government. Obviously, the president gets to nominate judges. The U.S. Senate has a role. The other co-equal branch, the legislative branch, has a role in confirming or denying those nominees to serve in that third branch of government in our court systems. And what they're doing is basically saying, hey, we don't like the court, that the decisions that the court is making now, so we want to remake the whole thing until we have the ability to control it. It's about control and power over freedom, Constitution, and liberty. And that is what makes them so dangerous and why we cannot allow them to continue to remain in power.
Thank you so much for joining us, Tulsi. We always appreciate your feedback and your thoughts, and I know our audience does as well. So obviously, thank you for joining us. Pick up Tulsi's book, For Love of Country. It's available wherever you get your books, or on Amazon. You can find it there. I encourage everyone to do that. New York Times bestseller. So it's very good. Take a look at it. Thanks, Tulsi. I did want to take a moment as we head into the last segment or last minute of this segment to tell you about our Life and Liberty Drive. And we are only a day away from our deadline, our end of July. Can't believe August is here. Back to school's happening. Our Life and Liberty Drive midnight deadline is tomorrow. Be a part of it right now. Your donations are critical if we're going to fight for your constitutional freedoms, defend Israel, and protect life and religious freedom. I want you to have your gifts doubled today. Every donation made is doubled. 10 becomes 20, 20 becomes 40, so on and so on. Go to aclj.org. Have your tax-deductible gift doubled now.